Hello and welcome back to the Hyperspacepodcast. My name is Sam, and as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host. It's Michael Ghosh. Michael, how you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing pretty well, thank you. You?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well, and as always, we're here for our final Bad Batch breakdown, as well as a bit of a review of the season, giving our thoughts on it. And yeah, we're a few days later than we normally be. This is going to come out on a Wednesday as opposed to a Monday. We've been a bit busy, and I'm not going to lie, the final episode was did frustrate me a lot. And so, first of all, Michael, give me your thoughts. Episode 16.
Um, Kind of landed like a wet sponge. You can imagine that's basically how this episode landed on me, like a wet sponge out of a window. It there's a lot of water. there's there's a lot of missing action because not much happens.
Mm.
And I guess the thing is, it was a good episode, but was it a good finale? No, not in my opinion. Not a good finale. A very good episode, but not a good way to end the season.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that summary. If it had been a few episodes earlier, it'd have been a good
Yeah.
episode. But for a finale, underwhelming in my opinion. In a
Mm.
finale, I want a lot of action. I want some surprises, maybe some characters turning up, and we got none
You
of
want to
that.
get hit. You want to get hit in the feels, and we didn't get that. We didn't get any feels.
Exactly. I thought maybe someone would die. No one died.
We only really got feels right at the end, which we'll get around to. But even then, not enough.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, let's get into the breakdown. We start the episode basically where we left off. The Empire are firing on Camino. We get an aerial shot of them firing, and a clone goes up to Rampart, and he does. I don't know. There's definitely like he makes a movement as if he's kind of sad. I don't really know how to describe it, but he definitely has makes a movement like realizing what he's done, but he doesn't say anything. Do you think that's potentially, I don't know, just maybe a little look that's potentially foreshadowing a future uprising, or that there's a lot of clones that maybe are a bit 50-50 on whether they should stay with the Empire?
I think we kind of started with Captain Hauser. The clones he was serving under must have been 50-50, the ones who switched to him, because I don't think they would not have done something that stupid just out of loyalty necessarily to their captain, because it would have gone against like the mindset of Order 66. So there certainly is. I think I don't know what it is, but I think in the immediate aftermath of Order 66, it seems like some of the control the chip has wavered potentially, or that we're just seeing a better representation of like the mindsets of the clones. Because like you said, we kind of see like there's a few hints that some people are going to realize, I guess, what's right and what's wrong despite the chips. Yeah, and I think a wider clone uprising is quite likely, although I don't think it's not the way it happened in Legends, obviously now. With it being in Camino, and it's more like you said, like an internal uprising, I guess, of clones. But I think it's going to be quite small scale, and it's more likely, I think, to be them either joining the rebels or they're going to get put down quite quickly, I think.
Yeah.
If we get to see it, because we don't see them in the original trilogy or any original trilogy material yet.
It will be interesting how they deal with that. We then cut to Camino inside, where we have the Bad Batch separated. We have Tech, Echo, Wrecker, and what's his name, Hunter, in one chamber, and then the other we have AZ, Crosshair, and Omega, and the latter of the two, Omega, and their tank is filling up. We have Crosshair who's stuck under it, and there's a bit of a threat that Crosshair might be in trouble, but then we have Omega saving Crosshair. She could have easily left him to die, but she cares about him like a brother, and she saved him from the flooding chamber. And this scene kind of, for me, it looked like, so you had the two chambers, and we had, as I said, the four members in one, and then you have Omega and Crosshair in the other. To me, it kind of represented the four almost normal ones, and then you have the two almost outcasts in the other. I don't know if that's what Dave Filoni was going for, but you have Omega, who is clearly different from her clone brothers, and Crosshair, who definitely thinks a lot differently, and as you can see, joined the Empire. Of course, he had that inhibitor chip that stayed with the Empire, even with it, with what he said, it being removed. Do you think that's what potentially Dave Filoni was going for, separating the two?
Possibly. I mean, I think there was a deliberate separation of most of basically the main Bad Batch members, and then having Omega and Crosshair together. I think the thing I was thinking is that Omega was the one who was quite sympathetic towards Crosshair, whereas the rest of them, once they find out he hasn't got his chip, are like angry at him, where she's just sort of disappointed. And there is a sort of level of sympathy still that she has to him, whereas the others are just fuming because I guess since he's had his chip removed, they thought he would try and come back to them. And I guess they also feel hurt because Crosshair blames them, whereas I guess Omega's not really involved in that. And I was wondering if there's like like you said, that probably was a deliberate separation of them. And I was wondering whether maybe the opinions are the reason why they were separated, because Crosshair got left with the person who was probably the most sympathetic to him. But also what you said about them being outcasts, like in the Clone Wars in season 7, when we see the Bad Batch, he does stick out quite a lot. And I was watching the Skeko Minor episodes and the whole arc where they get Echo, and he does stick out quite a lot as being very sort of cold compared to the others. And there's a sort of like, I don't know, you can kind of tell he's the one who the inhibitor chip would work in, I guess. If it was going to work in one of them, if someone said, what is going to work in one of them, point at it, at the person it would work at, you'd probably point at Crosshair. And so even from the start, he's different before the chip.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, in
Omega.
Yeah, and of course, in that in the Clone Wars episode with them in, you do have that corridor scene where Anakin and Crosshair run one way, and then the rest of the batch run the other, kind of foreshadowing this future where you see Crosshair and Anakin running towards almost like the Empire, and the others like running the other direction to show how different they really are.
Yeah, and I think Dave Filoni had that planned as well, because he had the thing I always think about is like the owl, the Morai owl from the brother, the sister, and the father arc, the Mortis arc, and the fact that sort of weaved in throughout the rest of, I guess, his work. Like it's there in the Clone Wars a bit more. It's there in Rebels especially, and you kind of get the impression he knows what he's doing and he's planned it out. Like you said, there's a lot of symbolism in a lot of the things he does. And likely him separating Omega and Crosshair was a very deliberate choice. And like you said, they are both, like Omega especially is also kind of an outcast because she wasn't in the Bad Batch. She wasn't like raised with them. Even if she saw them, she was always sort of on the outside anyways. And she's not a trained soldier like they are. And she's like not an altered clone. She has no aging, which we already kind of guessed when they kind of make it a big surprise in this episode that she's older a bit later. But I think we all knew that she was the same age as Boba.
Yeah, she literally said in the last episode that she'd watched them grow up. So she basically spelled it out to us. And then in this episode, they thought, let's just hammer it home. And it's kind of like, we talked about this in the last episode. It wasn't exactly a surprise, was it?
No, it wasn't. But yeah, I think this the idea of them both being the outsiders is it's really interesting. Definitely a deliberate choice to separate them that way, though.
Yeah, no, it was 100% a deliberate choice. We then have the batch escape, and they run to a watertight part of Camino, and that ends up being their quarters, which seems to be safe. And it's a nice moment having them all back in their quarters for a moment, and they're trying to work out what to do. And Omega comes with a plan to try and get back in the pipes or the tube that took them to Topoka City. And we have a moment where Crosshair does question why the batch are always taking orders from Omega, which, to be fair, I do see his point of view because, as you said a second ago, she's not exactly military trained. So they are taking it would be weird from his point of view. He's not spent the time with her, but she comes with a alternate point of view, I guess, and that could be quite helpful. I don't know. He definitely does make a point of why you taking like so many orders from her. And this episode throughout is basically an episode focused on Crosshair and Omega's relationship.
Yeah, and I think with Omega, he hasn't seen like Hunter played the I forget what it's called, but the chess, the chess game, and so he knows that she's like very strategically minded, and he's kind of showed up since that episode happened a bit, where she's made some calls on stuff and she's like made the right decision, right? It's not happened too many times, but I think in this episode particularly, she has, like you said, this different viewpoint. I guess also Crosshair is kind of skeptical about everything, anyways. It's basically his personality is that he's like really skeptical. And you were saying about how like him and Anakin sort of separated in part of the episode, like he talks about how he like basically guilt trips Rex for leaving Echo behind.
Yeah.
And he says, if I was you, I would have left him behind too. But then like kind of has a go at him about it too. And like says, oh yeah, how do you expect him to be loyal if you left him behind? And it kind of foreshadowed this as well. And I wonder how deliberate that conversation was as well.
Yeah, I definitely think there was some foreshadowing there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because we kind of seen it in this like you were saying in the first like in the first couple of episodes where they're all kind of missing Crosshair. They didn't mean to leave him behind, but I think Crosshair doesn't get that. And I think the thing is also, I don't know if it's because of the control of the chip or he's just upset they didn't go back for him, but there was no reasonable way they could have gone back for him, which is why when we were talking about it, we were like, this is an end of season thing if they can go back for him. And we thought that's how, when we started predicting it, we thought they'd deliberately go back to Camino for him. But then as we saw the show develop, it doesn't make sense they would.
Yeah. No,
because it's
true.
illogical for them to go to Camino, and we kind of saw it in this episode. They what the reasons they were in Camino in the first place.
Yeah, no, completely. And they then, after taking Omega's orders, and they get in the pipes that took them to Poke City in the last episode, and then the pipes are attacked by a sea monster. I don't really know. I don't think it was given a name, but yeah, attacked by that sea monster. AZ gets the power on, and it shocks them away before they climb into Nala Say's lab, where, as you said earlier, Omega reminded the brothers that she's older, and she saw she was all alone until they were created, which she really does see them as brothers, because before then, as she said, that she literally had no one. And it must have been early in their lives because they didn't really remember who she was when they met her in like episode one. So it must have hurt her a bit that she spent a lot of time with them, developed this relationship, and then in episode one, they don't remember who she is.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't really thought about that, but yeah, she would have been there for like, I think she was there when they were like in the like, I don't know what you want to call them, the big round cylinders, right? So she saw them like, I guess, being created, but she didn't see them beyond that, from what I understand. So she guess she would have like had quite a bond with them, but it's not the same. But I guess also she would have felt like because they were defective clones, they're like the closest thing she has to family. Because the regs wouldn't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, completely. We then have they come up with a plan to get in the medical capsules to get guided to the surface by AZ, and we get where AZ's battery dies, and of course, Omega being Omega, she can't deal with any leaving a man behind, and went in to go and save him and struggles. She can't lift him up, and they are saved by Crosshair, who grapples AZ, saving Omega and the medical droid. And it kind of came full circle in this episode in terms of at the start, you have Omega saving Crosshair. You have Crosshair and Omega having a lot of interaction throughout this episode. And then Crosshair saves Omega. So I'm pretty sure he says, "We're even now," or something like that. And I'm not really sure. I feel bad, but I almost wanted AZ not to be saved. It sounds quite bad, but we didn't really have a huge. We have it after this with the batch and Crosshair on the platform, but we didn't really have an emotional moment. We didn't feel that kind of loss, because the loss of Crosshair not joining them, we'd already experienced. So maybe a loss of AZ, who he's a droid we're fond of. He was in Clone Wars with the what's his name? Who was the I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. Fives. He was in the Clone Wars with Fives. Yeah. And he's been in Bad Batch a few times. We thought he potentially was dead after he got electrocuted early on in the series, but we like this droid. So seeing them die would have added like this emotional level, and we didn't really get that.
No, and it's kind of like how I started. Like, this episode just doesn't hit quite right as a finale, and the finale I guess we were expecting, which I guess some of we were like, oh, it subverted expectations, but it's not in a good way. We didn't really, we didn't get any sort of emotional weight. And like you said, we already knew we already experienced Crosshair not joining the Bad Batch. So all we see is him like rejecting, I guess, a second chance at the end of the episode. And that kind of like doesn't have the emotional weight it would, because the entire episode, it's very clear he will not join them. The only like emotional weight we have is like the fact that they are so desperately trying to convince him. But even then, they like just give up pretty quickly, which is fair enough. But you do like wonder like what the point in that moment was, except for him to reinforce the fact he's going to go to the Empire. Or like he kind of seems sad about it. This episode, I saw someone say it reminded them of the Rebels arc with Callus and Zeb when they're stuck in that ice planet in Rebels, and how like Callus like stays with the Empire despite them like going through like quite a dangerous situation, and then when he gets back, like no one cares, and like he kind of realizes how cold the Empire is, and he sort of I guess wonder if Crosshair's gonna have the same thing where he like he misses the Bad Batch because he realizes he doesn't have that in the Empire, and they don't really like him being there in the first place. They sort of like tolerate him as a tool. I guess the thing is though with Callus and Crosshair is their personalities are quite different. So you might see the opposite where he goes back, that happens, and he just doesn't care.
Yeah,
which would also be quite interesting to see. But that's for season 2, which, as we've been saying since quite a long time, this is going to be a multi-seasonal show, and we've known it the entire time. And we got that confirmed. Was it before the finale, right?
I think it was before episode 15.
It might have been, it was just before, yeah.
But we then, as you say, get the moment with Crosshair trying to be persuaded by the Bad Batch to join them, but he says he wants to be on the winning side. He wants to be on the side that wins the war, which kind of vibes of I forget his name, the Jedi with four arms, and
Ponkrell.
Ponkrell, who everyone hates, and it's just he's such a well written character because he serves his purpose in the fact that he's so dislikable. But he definitely has the vibes of wanting to be on the winning side, and Omega reminds him that he's still their brother, which does cause a bit of hesitant, and he is kind of sad, as you say, to see him to leave them. But as you said, we never really felt that Crosshair was going to stay with the Bad Batch. He was always going to stay with the Empire through media speculation and from just watching the episodes. The most surprising bit about this is the storm on Kamino had cleared. Have we ever seen it like that before? Because I'm sure on Kamino it has always been rainy, stormy the whole time. And all of a sudden, Topoka City gets destroyed and the sun comes out. I was a bit confused by that.
Yeah, I do. I was wondering about that. And I was wondering if there's... again, it's hard. I'm not sure if there... I was wondering if like Dave Filoni had some sort of significant meaning, or whether it's foreshadowing Crosshair switching sides later on, because it was like dark and stormy when they destroyed the city, and then as soon as, like you said, as soon as the city's destroyed, the weather like completely clear, which, like you said, it's like quite weird for Kamino. I think, to be fair, it was clear in the the arc with the Asajj Ventress kiss of infamy.
Yes.
In that arc, the weather was clear for at least part of the battle.
Yeah, but
I don't think it was for the entirety.
So rare,
it wasn't that clear though. I think it was still like overcast or something. I can't remember that. It's been a while since I've watched that. I can't remember even what season that is. I think it's like season 3 or something. It might even be when the ARC troopers are the only ones with phase 2 armor. That might be how old that episode. That might be like that might be season 3 or something. But it's I think maybe there is some sort of significance. It's the sort of thing that Dave Filoni would put into an episode. Like the Mortis arc, I think he had the meaning of that planned out for ages, especially like the fact that Owl shows up everywhere with Ahsoka, and like a lot of people say that means that she's like basically the embodiment of the light side, which also makes a lot of sense from what we see throughout Rebels, and even I guess we see in the Mandalorian. And I think I mean that's probably the best example of like where he's had these plot threads he's picked up and put elsewhere. And I think maybe there is a reason that the like weather is like that afterwards. I might be looking too deep into it, but it's a sort of thing Dave Filoni would have planned out, or might have some meaning.
Yeah, knowing Dave Filoni, it probably I reckon we've hit the nail on the head with it potentially foreshadowing Crosshair's future, but who knows? The episode finishes with Nala Se arriving on a planet, and somebody says to her that Empire has a lot of work for her to do. End of episode. And to be honest, that bit was like, we knew this was happening. You didn't really need to spell it out for us. We literally had a few episodes ago the fact that they were going to use her for her cloning abilities. So I'm not really sure. I'm pretty sure they could have left it with the Bad Batch flying away. And I think that'd have probably been a better end. I don't really needed to think I don't think they needed to tag this on the end. But I don't know.
I prefer if they'd done it as a post-credit scene, to be honest, if it had been done in that style instead of being sort of tacked on to the end. I don't mind it if it had been tacked on before that moment with Crosshair, but it's the fact it sort of feels like they're deliberately doing it because they're like, wink, wink, nod, nod,
Yeah.
We like, because the guy looks like the cloner, the guy who was who worked for the cloners in the Mandalorian on that Imperial shuttle, and you just got to wonder whether like they know it's meant to be the same uniform and stuff. It's made it quite obvious, and it's meant to hint towards like plot points of the Mandalorian, I think, or at least 2 plot points of maybe the sequel trilogies. But they haven't Dave Filoni hasn't really picked up any sequel stuff in the Bad Batch so far. It's only been Mandalorian stuff, so we'll have to see. But I guess, yeah, I think it was a bit weird, and I think it would have been maybe better ending to end on the Bad Batch just flying off.
Yeah.
Or they could have, if they, for that. I think the thing is, though, we've got to remember as well, they're not even competing for runtime. It's not like they put that in to make the runtime longer. They've just done that, and I don't mind that. I actually quite like that scene. I just don't know if it fitted well at the end, and I think a post-credit scene would have been better. Just it's not a very Star. I guess the thing is, it's not a very Star Wars thing to do, but I think maybe that's the way they should be going towards.
Yeah, I agree.
If they want to do things like that.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts on the episode, or?
I think we said it quite. I think I said it quite well at the beginning. As you can see, the episode really did hit like a wet sponge.
Yeah.
Until it hit the ground, there was no like actual weight to the episode, and it was thoroughly wet throughout.
Yeah, I mean, pretty perfect analogy there.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the season's finished. Let's talk about what we thought of it. I mean, season one, I don't think we hyped up too much until nearer when it came out, because we were like, we know this is going to be good.
Good, yeah.
It's Dave Filoni. It's going to be good. What were your thoughts on the season overall? I think personally it can be summarized in a phrase, and that is character development and world building.
Yeah. And I think we've said that pretty much every episode, at least for the first until the Rex arc. Until the Rex arc, it was character building and mainly world development as well. And I think I don't think that was ever a bad step. I just think, especially when people were like, "Oh, is it going to be multi-seasonal or not?" If they're going to do that, it better be multi-seasonal, because otherwise, I think we would be giving this a much harsher review for a season. The fact this is the first season of a I'm going to assume it's a multi-seasonal show. At least it's 2 seasons. But let's be honest, it'll probably have a 3rd season. I mean, it's probably. I think it's going to be it's likely they will do a 3rd season. But again, we'll have to see. But they're at least doing the 2nd season. So I think as a first season goes, it's probably the best first season of an animated show, Star Wars show. Either that or the Clone Wars. And it's tough between those two, because I think maybe they're at least even, or it's very close where I think personally I'd have some bias to saying the Clone Wars is better, especially with I think the Ryloth arc in the Clone Wars is better than maybe the Ryloth arc in this, but that's a debate for another day. But either way, I think it's at least one of the better starts to a first season. I think it's probably about as good as the first season of The Mandalorian. At least I think I can say that, although even that's quite controversial.
Yeah, to be honest,
I think the finale is the reason why it's not. That's the main thing I think we should be talking about, is if we don't include the finale, which I'm not doing when I'm saying this, if you don't include the finale, it is that good. When you do include the finale, it's not.
Yeah.
Because it was such a letdown, to be honest. Like you were like fuming over it when you were writing the notes on this episode, and I honestly don't blame you, because it was just lackluster, completely lackluster, and it was missing a lot of the things I think we both enjoyed about the Bad Batch so far. Even the filler episodes had some emotional weight, I think. I thought the episode with the battery, I think that's episode 3, I want to say.
Maybe.
I think it's the one where they give Omega her like room, which is just the turret at the back. And that episode, while it didn't do anything necessarily plot-wise, the character development in that and the emotional, I guess, weight of some of the situations was better than the finale. And I think that's why I like the Bad Batch, is because it has this sort of... They're real characters, all of them, And then we get to the finale and nothing really happens, and there's not the character development we want to see. Because they developed Crosshair, but none of the other characters really got any development. It was only him and Amiga, and we've spent so much time with Amiga. That's not necessarily what we wanted. And and it certainly wasn't. They should have developed some of the other characters more, but they felt like in this finale they were very much in the background.
Yeah,
Especially Echo.
Yeah, poor guy.
Season.
But
Echo's
to be
been
fair,
sidelined.
To be fair, he did get a lot of character development in Clone Wars, so it's partly understandable that he got sidelined.
Yes, I have said that in other episodes where I'm like, yes, fair enough, he got development in other episodes, but there is, he could do with a little bit more, and so could Tech. Wrecker had quite a lot early on, but it's been a little while since he's had anything, really.
Hunter had a lot.
Hunter's had a lot, but then he definitely is the protagonist of the show. Him or Amiga is.
Yeah, no, I'd probably agree. To be honest, to sum up the show, I'd probably say, I don't know if this is harsh, not bad, but nothing special, to be honest. I think that I personally think the first season of the Clone Wars is much better. I think
the thing is, I'm looking at it thinking about the highlight episodes, and rather than remembering, episode 2 was good, but also very slow, didn't really accomplish that much. You look at the finale, not so great. There's the Sid episode, even though I really liked that, did nothing to further the plot at all.
Yeah.
And they didn't do anything. They didn't even pick up. The thing is, if they'd picked up Sid and Sid had been involved with this, maybe it would I think we would let it slide a bit more. And I think the thing is, when you account for that, then the first season of Clone Wars is a lot better. It's just, I think, especially as we've only recently watched it, I keep thinking it's a lot better than it really is, especially accounting for how many filler episodes there were. And there was, you were fuming with the Sid episode because you thought it was the penultimate episode.
Yeah,
but even if it, yeah.
I don't know. The show has had highlights, 100%, as it had some great episodes. Some episodes I'll definitely look back on. However, for me, there's I don't know, for the character development and world building, there's loads of it. That's a good thing. Personally, there's too much of it for this season to be incredible. It definitely leaves season 2 to be amazing. It definitely opens up for season 2 to be amazing. But for this season, I think there's too much character development. Oh, there's character development fine. There's a bit too much world building. And I think I love her character. They spent too much time with Sid.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with you. And I think the thing is, I'm looking back at the highlight episodes instead of looking at it as a whole. If you look at it as a whole, the Clone Wars did what it was wanting to do as an anthology series where it's doing these small stories. I think the thing is also, we got to remember, the Clone Wars did have some really, really bad filler episodes and just boring arcs. They were good action arcs, but not... the season 1 is not season 2 and 3 of the Clone Wars. And I think if you go and rewatch the Clone Wars, season 1 is probably the one you're least likely to rewatch.
Oh, I don't know. I really like season 1. You have the Malevolence arc.
The Malevolence is good.
It's very good. Ryloth is season 1. That's excellent. Admittedly, I probably won't go back to watch anything else.
Blue Shadow Virus.
That's...
Yeah. Now you see what I mean. I think the thing is, it's hard to remember which episodes are in the first season. I'm pretty sure that... that's the one with Jar Jar in it as well. You forget that Jar Jar's in that arc as well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true.
I think that's why I think the thing is, it's hard to judge compare the shows though because of their length difference as well. But I think the one thing we can agree on is that it did what Rebels tried to do, but better, with developing a squad of characters or an ensemble cast. And I think it did that better. And I haven't seen Resistance, but I'm going to imagine you're going to tell me this is a lot better than Resistance as well. And I think it's on par with The Mandalorian, to be honest, in some ways, because that first season of The Mandalorian did pretty much the same thing. but it was way more repetitive.
Yeah. Having watched half an episode of Resistance and then just been like, yeah, now this is not very good. It's definitely better than Resistance, though. To be fair, Resistance is definitely more of a kid show than this. Yeah, there's it's I don't know, it's frustrating, this series. However, I think that it's key to look at. There's a lot of positive stuff as well. There's so many returning characters, which was awesome to see. We got Cutler Quain, Saul Guerrero, Rex, Gregor, Fennec Shand, Cad Bane, Hera and Cham Syndulla, Orn Free Tar, Grand Moff Tarkin, and Kanan Jarrus.
You forgot Gobi.
And
you left out poor Gobi.
I'm sorry, poor Gobi.
My man Gobi.
But yeah, we've got so many, which I thought was positive. You know, definitely, you can tell, as you can see, I left out the sisters.
You left out Tarkin as well.
I said Tarkin. Tarkin.
You did say Tarkin. You did say Tarkin.
But yeah, I left out the sisters because I was talking about the positive recurring
characters, the ones that we like.
Exactly. But yeah, that was awesome to see those, especially Cad Bane coming back.
I can't remember. I don't know what their names are, but the two, the Requay and the I don't know what they're called. That guy, the two regulars at the bar.
Yeah.
Those two guys, they developed those characters amazingly. I know they weren't used very much, but I actually, you know what? I know that Sid was used too much, but I did actually like Sid.
Yeah. No, I was going to say that. Sid's a good character.
They should have used Sid differently, though. Sid should have been less like Sid should have been less like what's his name? What's Carl Weathers' character called in The Mandalorian? Oh my god, you know who I mean?
Yeah.
Can't remember his name.
We're both just sitting there trying to remember.
My mind blank. My mind blank. But oh my days. Oh my god. Anyways. She should have been less like him and a bit more, I guess, like part of the team. And the thing is, we even see that with like Carl with his character, where he like in season 2 gets developed into basically part of like the Mando's little squad.
Yeah.
Like he goes with them a bit more, and I think that's what that's the direction Sid needs to be taken into. She needs to be not like, I guess, a mediary between like, I guess, the clients and the Bad Batch for a mercenary mission, but bounty hunter missions, mercenary missions. They need to be some sort of like cooperation between the two of them a bit more.
Yeah,
and I think they need to do something different with Sid's character now. We've kind of like, she's been established. She either needs to go and spend more time developing her character separately and give her an actual arc. But I think the thing we want more is them to go and do the main arc, which is still going to be focused around Crosshair, I think.
She will definitely not feature as much as she did in season 1. In season 2,
no. She'll be in. Now
it.
They've got a purpose. I don't think. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, she's not going to be used as much. She'll like almost like Carl Weathers' character. I mean, he was in loads of season 1, and then was in not as much season 2 of Mandalorian. But yeah, other positives, as I said, recurring characters. Cad Bane's return was awesome. The music for that. I mean, a massive positive throughout the show was the music. That's the thing with Star Wars. You can hate on the prequels. You can hate on a lot of people, as a lot of people do the sequels. But the music in the sequels is still sensational. That's the one thing in Star Wars. You'll get sensational music throughout.
By the way, his name is Grief Karga.
That's it. We've mentioned him so often. His name.
I think. Yeah. The thing is, I feel like this is a bit of a tangent, but I feel like he wasn't used enough in season 2.
What, of Mandalorian?
Mandalorian, because I loved him. He was amazing. I thought he was hilarious. I think the thing is, in season 1, he was used a little bit too much, maybe. But the thing is, I like Carl Weathers, so I actually really enjoyed seeing him on screen so much. So I wouldn't complain about having more Carl Weathers in season 3. But I don't think he'll be as involved. I think he's going to move on to a different show.
Yeah, most likely he'll move on. But yeah, he's a Grief Karga was a sick character. Bit of a tangent, but yeah, his sick character. Talking about like other things, the animation as well came along leaps and bounds. I
From
almost feel like every episode got better. Like
I
it was
think
great at the
so.
start, but by the end it was superb.
I think the start was season seven level, and then I think towards the end it was better than season seven. But I
Mm,
think also part of that is I guess the scope of what they were showing on the animation was a lot more, and like I guess they were showing us a lot more than we saw in season seven. Because in season seven we didn't see as much, I guess, landscapes. We didn't see
yeah.
so many landscapes, and it was a bit more. There was a bit less of that, and I think especially as I feel like they did different things in the Bad Batch. We were able to appreciate the animation very differently.
Mm, yeah. No, it was great. Do you want to go through what were your favorite arcs slash episodes? What were your favorite bits of the series?
Well, I think we've mentioned it already, so I'll start off with the Ryloth arc with Hauser, and I think
Mm,
Hauser is the reason we like it so much. I mean, we obviously love Harrison Dula and Shamson Dula and Govey, obviously as well. Don't forget Govey. I think seeing all of those all those reoccurring characters did a lot, but the Hauser is the reason we like that arc. We sort of see him faltering with the Empire, and then we see him fully going against the Empire and standing with his men as well,
yeah.
and like sticking with them and getting them to like rebel against the Empire. I mean,
Mm,
they all get arrested for treason, but we all know we're going to see him again, if not the rest of like the people who did it. And I think we said it during the episode. It was like a good like third or like almost half of the people like threw down their weapons and stuff. Yeah, a bit less, maybe a bit less than half, but it was certainly about a third did it. And I think that arc told us a lot about the clones. I mean, how did you feel about that arc?
yeah, it's also on my list of my favorite arcs. To be honest, Ryloth in the original Clone Wars is one of my favorite arcs anyway. I really love that arc because then you get Obi-Wan Kenobi, you get Mace Windu, you get the Nera and the boy or
Um,
Waxer, whatever the girl's name is, who then pops up in Rebels.
Rebels,
You
which I
get,
also like the Rebels arc. I think the
yeah,
Rebels arc is pretty good as well
I
for
honestly
Ryloth.
think that Ryloth is just every time you go there, you'll just get a solid arc, you'll get a solid episode. Ryloth is really, really solid ground. And I thought in this episode got some more background to Harrison Dula, which was awesome. I really liked Chamson Dula. I liked him from the Clone Wars. I liked him from Rebels. I liked him from this. And you kind of see how he gets from Clone Wars to
Hmm.
Rebels perspectives in a way. And yeah, really big fan of Ryloth and thought this was a great arc. What other episodes slash arcs do you have?
I have also got the Braca arc,
Mm,
and I think I'm going to include the Cad Bane episode with that as it
yeah.
sort of carries on. And I think the moment we hear that, the Western jingle, the song, we all I was surprised to see Cad Bane arrive still, despite the fact I was pretty sure it was going to be him.
Yeah.
And the fact he just they have this very very amazing Western style standoff, and I think especially as it's kind of a homage to a lot of great Western films. I really like that, and especially as like Star Wars is and was like heavily based off westerns. Where, like
Mm,
George Lucas heavily based off westerns and samurai movies, and we sort of get that sort of also like a part of the fact is the western movie sort of is inspired by westerns. We also get that sort of like samurai duel sort of thing as well before they start fighting, and it's I think it's so cool the way they cut away in that duel, and like then we just see Cad Bane shoot Hunter, and that's not the outcome we were expecting. I mean, it's the outcome that makes sense, but that's not what we were expecting. The fact he just gets shot in the chest, falls over, and then Miga's like crying basically,
Mm.
and then Todo gets shot in the foot, and we just see like Cad Bane is on a different level, and I think, and we'll go. I've jumped to Cad Bane because I mentioned it, but with that arc in Braca, first it brought Braca, which is from Jedi Fallen Order, and I think we talked about this. It's a game we both really like, and the story we really like. I mean, I think especially as it's a Star Wars game, it's not even the best Star Wars game. It's not even a necessarily really good one. It's just the fact they finally made one that is just decent,
Yeah.
and it has a really good story, has helped. And the fact they've put that planet in the Bad Batch like is nice for us fans, because it's nice to know where it stands in the canon, and also it's nice to see, we see in Jedi Fallen Order all these Venators, and I guess the thing we would wonder is, it must take years to dismantle them, because they're several kilometers long. They crewed thousands of people, and they all that's not even to account for the fact the hangars had hundreds of ships in them, or like tens of ships in them,
Yeah.
and the walkers and the gunships as well, not just the fighter companies. And it's just really interesting to see all of that in the context of like just after the Clone Wars, and the fact that we know from that they were depositing the ships there during the Clone Wars as well,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is something I hadn't considered, and I don't think is really spelled out in Jedi Fallen Order. I mean, the guy who Cal Kestis is friends with talks about the fact he's been dismantling ships for years there. Even when you account it as before the Clone Wars, he was like during the Clone Wars he was doing it. But you never really account they're going to be Republic or Separatist ships he'd be dismantling.
Yeah.
And I found that really interesting. And that's like, we're not even talking about the episode here, like the actual plot, which is like the thing we were expecting to happen, which is one of like Wrecker's ship going off. And that's one of the other things I think the other filler episodes did really well, is they built up to this arc so well.
Yeah.
And the way that Wrecker turns on Omega, and like the emotional weighting of that, and the fact we know one of them is going to get triggered to like go bad, and we didn't know who it was going to be. We thought it would be Wrecker, but we weren't sure. Because they were all going to get their chips removed, but then Wrecker goes ballistic before the chips removed.
Yeah.
It adds a different dimension to it.
Yeah, for me, Braca is also on my list of my favorite art / episode. First of all, you're getting Rex returning, which we'd wanted and we knew was going to happen, but it was just awesome to have him back. Wrecker turning was really good. That episode was just really solid throughout. Was quite emotional and really enjoyed it. Then the next episode, you have Crosshair and trying to outwit the Bad Batch, knowing every move. And that was just a really, really solid episode as well. Really good episode. And then at the end, of course, you have Cad Bane, who is amazing.
Yeah, we could spend another half hour talking about these two episodes, despite the fact we've already done that for each of them. And I think that really says it all, the fact we've had to really compress the summary of all the good moments, and that's not really accounting for every small detail, and that's not we haven't even mentioned Rex appearing in it either. That's how much that episode really did for the Bad Batch, and it really did set up nicely Crosshair potentially having a redemption, which is what we all thought. I think we all thought that they were going to go remove his chip, and that set it up nicely. And it was, I'm really glad that he had his chip removed beforehand, because to be honest, and I like that in the finale as well. And the thing is, had the last episode been good, I would have put the finale arc, the Camino arc, on this list. But unfortunately, it was just disappointing. And while I wasn't expecting Crosshair to change sides, I was expecting there to be a little bit more regret from him for picking the Empire, but he does it so coldly. There's no sort of, I think when we talk about Callus, because I think that's the closest we'll get, Callus, you can kind of tell there is like some, you can like see like, especially like, I guess we see it immediately at the end of that episode, he kind of like regrets picking the Empire a little bit.
Mm.
And I'm hoping we'll kind of see that in the next season, where because we want Crosshair to change sides or to have this redemption arc. Because while he's a very good antagonist, it doesn't lead for very much development of his character if he stays as the antagonist. And that's fine if they want to leave him as an antagonist, but then they've got to figure out where else they want to go with the show. And I think it is mainly about the Bad Batch, and that includes Crosshair.
Yeah,
I don't,
I think they'll definitely. I still think they'll have a redemption arc with him. I think it'll
yes,
be moved to
yeah,
season
so do
two,
I.
but I think there'll be a redemption arc. What is your final episode slash whatever arc?
Mine, um,
Still deciding.
honestly, I think I'm gonna go because I grouped Cad Bane and the Bracket arc as a whole. I will. I'm going to pick the War Mantle arc, and I think you were too. And since I have the space for it, that's the one I'd pick because I think we had the Gregor reoccurring, and the setup for that arc, like for that episode, the beginning of that episode was phenomenal. I really enjoyed watching that, and I think when we talked about the episode, I thought that was Hauser, and the fact they got me. Although the armor was clearly commando armor, now you like see it later on because it's dark and stuff. You can't quite tell,
Mm.
and you can't see the outline that well. And I think we were both hoping maybe it would be Hauser, but then because it was Gregor, we were really happy anyways. I don't know. I know you were going to pick this one, so what were your thoughts on this episode?
Yeah, War Mantle was excellent episode. Yeah, we had Gregor, we had the early days stormtroopers, which were the original designs for A New Hope, were
Yeah,
designed like that, and they were interpreted. So that was a really cool Easter egg. The
yeah,
plot
the
was
Ralph
really
McQuarrie.
good. The plot was really
Yeah,
good. We had, I don't know, it was just such a really good episode. It left us on a cliffhanger. It definitely served its purpose and set up a great finale, even if it didn't necessarily deliver on that. I thought it was a really solid episode. However, I'm going to go, now you've gone for War Mantle, I'm going to go for
oh,
episode one because
oh yeah,
for me, episode one was a really great way to start the show. You don't need several episodes to set it up, just set it up in one episode. And I think that worked. We went through a lot in the episode, starting with Kanan. I mean, that was unexpected. So cool to have Kanan and his master. Seeing Order 66, we've seen Order 66 in so much media, but I felt like it wasn't overdone. Seeing it again was really interesting, seeing their perspective. I thought that was great. And then you see Crosshair throughout this episode wavering on what the Batch are doing. We have them seeing Saul Guerrera. That was another surprise in the episode. We see the Empire being built, or the Republic not being anymore and it being turned into the Empire. We had there is genuinely so much in this episode, and it doesn't really feel rushed because, of course, they have that longer period of time to spend with it. And in the end, we have Crosshair shooting at his brothers, and the end is pretty brutal, just seeing them trying to escape from one of their own. And I think it sets up the season fantastically and is definitely one of my favorite episodes in my top three. What do you think about the first episode?
Yeah, I'm glad they did it as an hour long, and I think the thing that really helped it was the fact it was done on the Wednesday, and then we got the next episode on the Friday, meant we kind of got to see the payoff to the setup after one day of waiting. And I know that episode 2 was quite a lot slower, but when we talked about the episodes because we did them together, because of that, like I think like I said, the fact that we got that change in pace, from quite a it from very rapid to slowing it down really helped because we got the setup was done and we sort of got to see them reacting to the events of their the show's setup really. And I think that is the reason why it worked so well. And I think, at least for me, that's why it was so memorable. Like all of the moments with Crosshair before, leading up to him staying with the Empire and having his chip like enhanced. I think all of that really, was helped by that second episode. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of the stuff we see on Camino, when they're, off world, like the moments with Tarkin and stuff, and a lot of the conversation about the clones being replaced, or this, like we hear this War Mantle project at that, we hear about it, and it's nice to kind of see it get paid off as well later on in the show.
Yeah. No, episode 1 was great. And yeah, definitely one of the standouts on the show. I think that wraps up our breakdown slash our thoughts on the season. We will definitely end up doing a video on what we think is going to happen in season 2. We will 100% dedicate a video to that. But for this episode, thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment what you thought on the season, and if you like the finale, let us know. Of course, there'll be people who liked it. There are people who don't. We all have different opinions, but yeah, let us know what you thought. Let us know why you thought it. Thank you, Michael, for joining us.
Thank you for having me, as always.
All good. It's a pleasure to have you. And as always, may the Force be with you.